What's happening? Okay, can you hear me, everybody? You can't hear me, Sandra. Oh dear. Can you hear my voice? Right. Loud and clear. All right, Neil. Hi, Neil. Oh, great. Can you hear me, Sandra? Can you all hear me? We'll see you. No. Okay, so are we all sorted then? Loud and clear. Oh, thank goodness for that. Okay. Hi. Hi, Russ. Hi, Armand. How are you? Sorry, a bit of trouble there just now. Right, sound check loud and clear. Okay, don't worry. That's sorted. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll just get rid of the old. I'll just get rid of the previous. Probably a podcast. The previous one. I'll just get rid of that. It was just like a. That was just a crappy test. Let's have a look. It's probably not on there. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of that. One moment. Delete. Just so people don't think that was the live stream. All right. I don't want that. Brilliant. Hi, Julian. Anthony. Still no sound? All right, Anthony. Everyone else can hear me. Refresh sound okay. All right. That's brilliant. Well, I'm using Google Hangouts this time and not the Wirecast. Anthony. Everyone else can hear me. I'll just get rid of this. So I'm just getting rid of all the useless software I open I don't need now. Bugger off. Anthony, put your volume up. Okay, Nigel. Hi, Nigel. Hugo, hello. Nice to see you again, Hugo. And Neptune Returns, hello. Thanks for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And we're going to discuss. Hey, Deborah, hello. Deborah's there. Deborah Hatswell. Bigfoot. Deborah was on her Panmo Radio the other day, so check that out. Thanks, guys. You know what? I'm going to post this to Facebook and Twitter. Just let people know that I'm there. Okay. There we are. So Facebook. Post to Facebook. A Russophobia Livestream. And I'll put it on Twitter as well. All right, there. So people know. I'm just sharing it on social media. Okay, now people know it's there. Brilliant. Right, okay, so it's much simpler using this, actually. It's much simpler. Okay, so Russophobia. Now, you may be wondering what Russophobia is. I love you too, Mysterious. Hello, Richard is there. David Monday. Oh, hello, David. How are you? Anthony, you taking a mic? You go to refresh button. Stephen, yes, it is snowing. It is snowing. Here, it's been pretty bitterly cold today. Okay, now Russophobia. Russophobia. You hear a lot about phobias these days. Homophobia, transphobia, this phobia, that phobia. Russophobia is the hatred or fear of Russia and all things Russian. And this seems to be the vice of our age. Has been probably for several years now. And I'll give you some of the examples what I'm talking about. Of course, there was a recent example, of course, which I'm going to talk about, but there's lots of others. What has been happening in the world at the moment is just one part of a much larger construct. And by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, especially you Irish people. Don't get too drunk. Mind you, it wouldn't be St. Patrick's Day if you didn't, would it? So what happened was 2 weeks ago, there was a chemical warfare attack on Britain. Now, this is something that we've been warned about for a long time. There's been a massive number of news stories about this for many years, ever since the war on terror began, and there's been talk of chemical warfare attacks. But one actually happened, and it wasn't from the Muslims this time. It was from Russia. Well, apparently that's what we've been told. This is the official story. And what happened was there was a man and a woman were found unconscious on a bench just outside a shopping centre in Salisbury. They were just sitting there and they'd slumped unconscious. They were taken to hospital and it was discovered they'd been poisoned. They're now in intensive care in a critical condition. They may not survive. Now, the area where they were found, well, the police and the emergency services moved in to seal off the area. Anyway, 3 policemen fell ill as well. They were affected by the same contamination. One of them very seriously. He's still in hospital now, although I hear he's on the mend. Now, the man on the bench was called Sergei Skripal, and the woman was his daughter, Yulia. Now, Skripal used to be a colonel in the FSB, the Russian Foreign Counterintelligence Agency. This is basically the post-Soviet successor to the infamous KGB. So he was a mole as well. You see, this is the thing. He was actually secretly working as a British mole. And there's a massive tradition of this in espionage. You have someone who's working as an agent or an officer for one side when he's secretly working for the other side. And these are double agents, and there's some very, very famous examples. There's the Cambridge spies, Kim Philby, Guy Burgess, Anthony Blunt, and Donald MacLean. And there was a couple more no one's ever caught. Now, these were highly placed British officials, but really they were double agents, or deep throats, as they were known, very, very highly placed double agents who were passing information to the KGB. Now, Sergei Skripal's cover was blown in 2010, and he was arrested, he was tried, he was in prison for treason, gave him 20 years. But later he was pardoned within 1 year, and the reason was he was exchanged for 10 Russian spies who've been apprehended by the United States of America. This sort of thing has been done before. Are you familiar with the Powers Able exchange of 1960? That was a very, very, very interesting story where basically a Soviet spy in the United States was swapped for the pilot of a spy plane who crashed in the Soviet Union. And there's a great film actually called Bridge of Spies, which I recommend watching because it talks about the Powers Able exchange. It's really good. So Skripal was released. He was pardoned. There were no pending charges against him, and this is very important to understand when you realise what's happening. Now, so Skripal, he didn't have to leave Russia. He was completely free to do what he wanted, but he did leave Russia. He eventually went to Britain and settled in Salisbury, Wiltshire, which is a lovely place. I've been there, very nice. So he and his daughter went to live in Salisbury, where he used to be a very popular man about town. He used to go to the local pub. Now, the poison that was used, we're told, this is what we were told it happened anyway. This has never been independently verified, I should point out. It's been done by the government at Porton Down, which is interestingly Porton Down, which is the British equivalent of Area 51. It's just 2 miles up the road from Salisbury. And so, can you all just gonna double check you can all still hear me, all right? Yep. No. Oh, Diego Vieira Velasquez is there. Diego and Deborah are going to get into a massive argument now. And yes, Anthony Blunt was a royal equerry, Diego, you're right. He was related to the royal family, yeah, distantly, but he was a royal equerry. He actually worked very, very much inside the establishment, good friends of the king and queen at the time. Yeah. And of course, Queen Elizabeth II afterwards. Okay, so hi Sorenable, how are you? Thanks for watching the live stream of Miles the other day. Can you all hear me? It seems like I'm right. Okay. John Barry, Britain. Yes, Britain has a version of Area 51. Well, there's several areas. There's Boscombe Down, Porton Down, Boscombe Down, Porton Down. Well, no one knows for sure exactly what goes on there, but we know that it was once part of Britain's biological warfare operation. That's very important. Now, what the government experts at Porton Down have said is that they were actually killed. Well, they attempted that. They weren't killed. They were attempted. They may be killed. We don't know yet if they're going to recover. But an attempt was made to kill them with something called Novichok, which is a deadly poison. And it is Novichok came about in the 1980s in the Soviet Union, then Russia. And it is something that it's very, very extremely deadly. It can be delivered in any kind of way. It can be dispersed as a powder or a gas or a vapor or liquid. It can be sprayed on you. You can breathe it in. and it could just be put inside an envelope like anthrax spores can, you know. And if you get it in you, chances are you'll die. It's very, very nasty indeed. And if you survive, it can actually carry out if you survive, you still have problems. You still have major health problems for your whole life, because it actually has a permanent lasting damage. It's just a permanent lasting damage to the nervous system, which can cause here we go, a weakness of the limbs, difficulty with walking, problems with the organs, including the liver, epilepsy, severe depression, and inability to read and concentrate. Terrible sort of thing it can do to you. It's extremely deadly, and it's actually, now the thing about Novichok is it's actually quite easy to make as things do. Now we say this is done by Russia. They say this is definitely Russia. Well, they say it's quite likely it was Russia. But if you actually look at the chemistry of Novichok, it consists of organic phosphorus with an organic phosphorus core, phosphomidate, phosphate, monofluorophosphate, and if you look at the actual compound here, it's all quite common ingredients. You could make, there's chlorine here. I see phosphorus, a lot of oxygen, fluorine, nitrogen. You could make this. I mean, I was talking to someone about this actually. They say you could make it in your garden shed. Please, but please don't. All right, okay. Whatever you do, don't try to make Novichok. There are probably some web pages telling you how to do it. Please don't try it at home, because you'll probably end up killing yourself. All right, and probably most of the people around you. So please don't try to make it. But anyway, this is a common tool of assassins in Russia in the modern age. So okay, and we've heard this ever since this poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter. You have Theresa May, you have Boris Johnson on the warpath. But all they have said in terms of facts are it's quite likely Russia were behind it. It's quite likely. Now, you can't go to court and say it's quite likely someone did something to me. Okay, that's not evidence. That does not count as evidence. But the government have been acting as if it is factually true that Russia carried out this attack. And on one level, there is an understandable level to this, because Russia has a long history of doing this sort of thing, of carrying out violent acts of retribution against its political dissidents. It's done this to many, many people. It's done it all over the world. It's very different from us. I mean, during the Cold War, for example, on the sort of Western side, the world of capitalist democracy was at loggerheads with Soviet socialism from 1917 all the way to the mid-1980s. Now, for instance, the Cambridge spies, I mentioned them before, when they defected in the 1950s, well, Philby actually defected in the early 60s, but the others all defected in, well, Blunt was caught. The other two, Burgess and Maclean, fled in the 50s, 1952, I think it was. Philby, yeah, and then they held press conferences in Moscow in the grand hotels there. They did interviews for the Evening Standard. You know, they could just wander around. Same with George Blake. He just sort of wandered around. He was on telly in that after he defected. But for people who travelled in the opposite direction, it was totally different. They had to go into hiding. They had to have fake names. They couldn't leave their home without bodyguards, because they knew that Soviet intelligence would murder them, and they did several times. I mean, the most famous case happened in 1940. Leon Trotsky, the Soviet intelligence agencies, they actually tracked him down to he was hiding out at a house in Mexico, and they hacked him to death with an ice pick. There's some film of him, film footage of him lying in hospital with his head in bandages. He died soon after that. Now, these punitive hits didn't end with the fall of the Soviet Union, because in 2006, the FSB killed one of its defectors, Alexander Litvinenko. Again, they poisoned him. It wasn't Novichok, it was polonium, but they poisoned him. They managed to get into his food. Now, but at the moment, all we have is quite likely. That's all the government are saying. It's quite likely that Russia are behind it. It's quite likely. And it's quite likely. I mean, as I said, try going to court with that. I think things would be Anthony. Okay, Anthony, I'm going to talk about Val Valiant Thor later. Okay. don't know if you can hear me now, but I am. Okay. Now, you can't, like I said, if this world will be transformed, actually, if politicians were made to obey the law in the same way the rest of us are. In other words, for instance, a manifesto, election manifesto, if it became a legal contract, for example, or if when the government start making accusations like this, they actually have to actually prove it in court. And they don't. They can just say these things and everyone's supposed to believe it. And then the newspapers will start publishing these kind of like jingoistic headlines like we've been seeing the last few days. Have you been seeing it? We've had enough of them. Cold War II. Have you seen the bloody headlines in the papers? I don't read newspapers myself. I mean, I'd rather... I would buy them and use them as toilet paper, but you wipe more on than you wipe off, don't you? But they got them in shops in these big boxes outside now, so everyone can see it. They know people aren't reading it, so they just make sure everyone can see the headlines. So there's no evidence at all that Russia had anything to do with it. The only thing they have is a supposition based on the victim's background and modus operandi. Okay, but let's look at these two things. Let's just examine these two: modus operandi, victim's background. Let's look at the victim's background. Skripal, it was not a Russian dissident. He was pardoned and released through due process through the Russian judiciary. That's an important point. He was living in Britain of his own free will. He could travel back to Russia whenever he wanted. He went back to Russia a few months ago because his mother was sick. Why would the Russian state carry out an assassination against somebody where there were no pending charges? He was not on a wanted list. It wasn't Leon Trotsky and the others. They were all wanted. Basically, the contracts were taken out on their life. As I said, they were dissidents, and the Soviets would kill their dissident enemies. If he was a real Soviet defector, he wouldn't be wandering around Salisbury having beers in pubs. He would every time he went out to his house, he'd have to watch his back. He'd have to have bodyguards everywhere. Why are we saying that this is? Why are they saying that this is Russia that did it? We've even had this ridiculous thing where Jeremy Corbyn is being looped into this. I'll say more about this at the end. But we should be suspicious about this. We've got no reason to think this is not some kind of false flag intended to frame Russia. I mean, again, why would Putin order a man? Why would he do this? Why would Putin do this? Putin his country is about to host the World Cup. Okay, he's about to host the World Cup, which is a very, very prestigious thing for him. I think it's the first time Russia's ever done this. I think they had the Olympics in the early 80s, but they've had, since then, that's been it. Why would he send his agents to kill a man with whom he had no beef with at all, because they pardoned him, leaving behind evidence which was designed to absolutely intentionally lead to his own country, bringing international and British and international condemnation down on him? Why would he do it? I think this is a false flag. It is. I think it's quite likely we should be suspicious that this is a false flag. Okay, that's as far as I'll go, but basically, you know where I stand on this. It's much more likely this is a false flag. It's intended to cause strife. It's intended to cause a diplomatic incident. And indeed, Theresa May, bloody cow, she's expelled 23 Russian diplomats. And no doubt there's going to be some retaliation from Russia. There's going to be more. This is building up tension between the two countries. And this is just the latest in a whole series of attacks against Britain. Sorry, against Russia. Now, for instance, in 2015, I've got a list of them here. The UK Defence Secretary, I forgot what his name was now, he announced that Russia is threatening to destabilise the Baltic states. This is Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Estonia is where Sandra Deroy comes from, and the filmmaker. During the Sochi Winter Olympics, there were huge organised protests against Russia's supposedly anti-gay or institutionally anti-gay policies. So we had Elton John, Lady Gaga going over there and singing songs. To his discredit, a former colleague of mine on the People's Voice, actually, Peter Tatchell, he went and added his penny's worth. But in post-Soviet Russia, homosexuality is no more a crime than it is in Britain. And no consenting adults have been persecuted by the state for homosexual acts since the Soviet era. In fact, it was actually the laws were actually eased in the Soviet Union before they were in Britain, in 1967, when the Le Brucheret sodomy laws were repealed. Okay. If you're gay in Russia, you can serve in the armed forces. You can have a civil partnership. The age of consent is the same for both straight and gay people. Now, what they do have is they have laws, which I think are quite sensible, actually, just simply preventing public display of anything too vulgar, which is intended to protect children primarily. So if they have a gay pride parade, that's something, it's tasteful. That's all they're just saying. They just don't want people waving dildos around and things like that, which is fair enough. And it's really quite. There was this chap, I can't remember his name, but he was an Olympic skater. He was a figure skater. So of course he's gay. It's like hairdressers, isn't it? You can just. But he's a Canadian guy. He lives in Russia. And he got into really big trouble because he said, "Oh, Russia's a great place to be gay. I have no trouble at all," you know. So no doubt Peter Tatchell and I think they sent the Inquisition over with the thumb screws and things like that. Oh, how are you guys in chat getting on anyway? So I won't be able to answer everyone in the Spurg chat until afterwards, but I'll go through your comments on the previous program as well, on the previous video as well, the notice. So yeah, thanks. You can still hear me. That's good. That's good. Okay, so now what happened in 2008? Okay, the International Monetary Fund approached Russia. This was just before the big stock market crash and the start of the big recession, and offered a kindly helping hand to all the nations of the world, including Russia, including Greece and Spain and Ireland, saying, "Come on, will you borrow some money? We'll sort you out, guys." And then what happens? Those countries now have effectively been repossessed by the World Bank. I'm not kidding you. I mean, they no longer exist as nation states. Well, Ireland doesn't. A lot of them don't anyway because they're in the EU. So they're actually member states of a federation. So they're not even nation states, which is incredibly awful thing to happen. Which is why Brexit is so important. And then their economies essentially been all their gross domestic product has been repossessed by the World Bank, and people like Peter Sutherland, who's an absolute piece of excrement, he was involved in this. He was instrumental in this. Now, several countries said no. One of them was Iceland, led by that brilliant stateswoman, Joanna Sigurðardóttir, who really should. If anyone's going to be head of a world government, it will be her. And Vladimir Putin in Russia. So two of the statesmen I have any respect for in this world, they said no to this crooked scheme. They had the sense to say no. And what's more, they also avoided something else, which Britain. Well, this is unbelievable, right? You know, Gordon Brown was Prime Minister for a while, a Freemason. In 2002, he sold off half of Britain's gold stocks at a discount price, mostly to China. You'd think to yourself, Max Kaiser did a thing. I don't know if you ever watched the Kaiser report. Max Kaiser, Stacey Herbert. Bloody, if you get bored with BBC World Business Report, do watch the Kaiser report, because this was unbelievable. He did this. I mean, why would you? There's only one reason you would actually do this willingly and knowingly, is if you wanted to sabotage your own economy. In other words, destroy your own financial system, which is what I think Gordon Brown must have been trying to do. Now, Russia didn't do that. Russia kept hold of its gold stocks, which means this is why its economy has been stronger than almost any other country in the world. And Russia is also very possessive of its own natural resources. This is another thing, because its territory is by far the biggest in the world. The Russian Federation is the largest nation state on Earth. It's not as big as the old Soviet Union. A lot of the old Soviet satellite states have now become independent, but it's still huge. It's still the biggest country in the world. There's oil there, gas, fertile farmland, all kinds of minerals, loads of minerals of all kinds. And what's more, the Russian oil industry, there's an open secret in the Russian oil industry, and that is that oil is not really a fossil fuel. It is abiotic. You may have heard of abiotic oil. The fact that oil replenishes itself over time. So this peak oil thing is bollocks. What happened was the Russian oil companies have found that if a well is depleted and you're not getting pressure coming out of it, Ian R. Crane has talked about this. Ian is a former oil company executive. He's now part of the anti-fracking movement. He's doing an excellent job. If you leave the depleted oil wells alone for 10 or 20 years or so, you can go back to them. You can find the pressure has returned. Now, this is what I mean by an open secret. Is they're not speaking out about this. It's not being publicized because they know very well what would happen if this came out. The price of oil would fall through the floor and it would never rise again. Now, what we do have, this is interesting, that's ironic actually, because we do have a worldwide drop in the price of oil. Well, this has been going on for several years now, and it's devastated several economies, like British Columbia, which is where my friend Trevor Murray lives, or used to live, and Alberta in Canada, which there's a massive oil industry there, or there was, but it's been devastated. It's been decimated by this drop in the oil prices. But the thing is, the drop in oil prices was engineered to give Russia a hard time. And if the Canadian oil fields have to go down, go down the sink with it, they don't care. 10,000 oil men in Canada have been put out of work. They don't give a shit. They're just going to let it do it. They're just going to do it. Oh, guys, so it's a bit of a this is a long-running problem that's going on, a long-running issue with Russia that the world has had against Russia. Yeah. Now, David Munday says Brexit has not had a mention for 2 weeks. Well, some people are saying that there's all kinds of news stories distracting us away from Brexit. Yeah. Red's under the bed. Well, they're not red anymore, Stephen. You see, this is why it's weird. We're going back. We're being sucked back into the same kind of Cold War situation they used to be. It's Russia's more right wing than the rest of the world now, ironically. Now we come on to some slightly weirder material, UFOs. Russia has a lot of UFO secrets. And there was even a secret recording of the Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, letting it slip about the government's position on UFOs, the fact that Putin and Medvedev and all the others, they know UFOs are there. They've got a massive amount of evidence. They have their own equivalent of Area 51, which is called Kapustin Yar. It's like Area 51, but it's even bigger and even more secret, if that's possible. There's actually there's an underground base at Area 51 called Zitkur, which is where there's a big UFO project that's been running there since the 1950s. Yeah, so. And how many of you? I know those of you who watch Hapanmo TV. I know there's not a lot of crossover, but how many of you listen to Hapanmo Radio as well? Because I had Stephen Bassett on there 2 weeks ago. Stephen Bassett, the Paradigm Research Group. He was on there, and he was talking about it. He spent a lot of time in Russia. He's been on Russian TV. He's trying to get an audience with Vladimir Putin because he wants Russia to be the disclosure nation. Now, the whole disclosure nation, things like that, the big disclosure issue is a big topic which I've covered out elsewhere. But there's a whole there is. I think if anyone's going to be come up to disclosure, it'll either be Trump or it'll be Putin. It'll be one of those two guys who actually does disclosure, if disclosure is possible, which I'm not sure of. I'm very, very doubtful about it. But if there's a lot of internal conflict within me about that. But if it's possible, it'll be one of those two guys who does it, I think. Although Steve Bassett, he's written off Trump completely. He can't stand him. But I don't know. I think Trump could be the disclosure president, or Putin will be the disclosure. But now there's someone called Mahdi Darius Nazimoraya, who's written some articles for Nexus magazine, that's talked about, or give me a lot of this kind of material, this multi-spectral war on Russia, which includes the economic war, it's financial war, and it's an information war. And that's what we have now, and this is just one, like I said, this is just another stage in this long-running dialectic. We've had, for instance, do you remember the Daily Mail headline, Britain at the mercy of Putin's planes? Do you remember that? It's ridiculous. I mean, there was this awful thing which Nazir Moraya talks about, where the ruble, Russia's currency, was crashed. It was the value of it was plummeted in order to try and sabotage its economy. I mean, the crash in oil prices to sabotage the Russian economy. So when you hear these stories about, aircraft flying off the coast of Cornwall, or submarines being detected off the coast of Scotland and Sweden, all right, this is Russia. They're not the aggressors here. They are simply asserting themselves. They're defending themselves. All this stuff about, we're at the mercy of Putin's planes, the evil Russian aggressor, right? They're not the aggressor. It's the globalists who are the aggressor. Russia is the oppressed in this situation. Russia is the one. They're now trying to fight back. They're being misrepresented. Now, Putin is one of the few statesmen I have any respect for. He's trying to fight back. He's trying to make deals with some countries, and there's some possibility in not doing their bid. They're also not in line. They're not on message with the New World Order. And one of those at the moment is the United States of America, where specifically Donald Trump, the president. Obviously, Trump is not the USA. The USA is a nation. The USA's entire constitution is designed to prevent one person having too much power. So Trump is, in a sense, his hands are tied up to a certain point. But Putin and he are working together. And why shouldn't they? And he's trying to make a deal with Turkey as well to build a gas pipeline, a natural gas pipeline as well, which no doubt there's going to be some trouble there. I mean, the neoconservatives and that are trying to scupper the one for Bulgaria. There was plans to route it through Bulgaria, and during the George W. Bush area, which is controlled by the Zionists through the neoconservatives, they put a stop to that. But I think things are looking better now. We could be looking at an entire pole of the world which is resisting the New World Order. And now we've got Brexit as well. That's going to have an effect, because this is why the civil war was started in Ukraine. It was over the European Union. All this rubbish about Russia shooting down Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. Nonsense. I'll say a bit more about that. But anyway, this is something we should take hope for. And people like Putin and Joanna Sigurðardóttir as well, the former Prime Minister of Ireland. When these people come to the top, it's a very healthy sign that things are not going the way of the lords and masters. Also, when Trump was elected, when we had Brexit, these things are not intended by the powers that be. And I'll debate any of you on this. I mean, I get all the time, I get people saying, "Oh, Ben, can't you see? It's all intended. The New World Order is intending all these things. It looks like it's not, but it's just another layer of the conspiracy." And I say, "Well, where's your evidence?" And they say, "Well, Ben, you see, that's it. The New World Order is so crafty that you can't see their evidence anymore." And at that point, it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Some of you guys, we're going to be like 100 years in the post-Illuminati era. Some of you guys are still going to be peeping around corners going, "My goodness, aren't they crafty?" Now, this aircraft, right, I'll say a few words about MH17. It's flying at 33,000 feet from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. It crashed in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine, killing everyone on board, 283 people. And the word got out, it was a Buk surface-to-air missile fired by local ethnic Russian militias. Now, the question was, well, the accusation was that the Russian government supplied these militias with this weapon. But guess what? The debris and the bodies and everything was cleared away. So there was no proper air crash investigation into that particular event. Now, whenever a plane crashes, they send in the air investigators, don't they? You've seen it all now. Seen it all on TV. It didn't happen this time. Everything was destroyed. The forensic evidence was destroyed. The scene was not preserved. So we don't know this actually happened. We don't know it. it's another of these quite likely things. So it's guesswork. The idea that Russia is behind the destruction of Flight 17 is the same as saying, well, Russia tried to kill Sergei Skripal. Same thing. Absolute nonsense. Oh, well, so basically, I think Putin is a loose cannon. I'm not saying he's on our side, but he's not on theirs. I think he's primarily a Russian nationalist. So he's got into power. I think he genuinely loves his country, and he's going against the interests of the globalists to protect his country. But good for him. Why shouldn't he? Good for him. And now we'll come to Jeremy Corbyn. Now, this is something very strange, because a few weeks ago we had some news stories about Jeremy Corbyn being a former communist spy. So in other words, they called him Comrade Corbyn, and he was working for the Czechoslovak Secret Service and informing for them. So he's like a double agent, another deep throat. Now, this has switched immediately and almost seamlessly in the last few days to Corbyn is an asset of today's Russia. And this really is a case of, Oceania is at war with East Asia. Now Oceania is at war with Eurasia. And it's just as George Orwell predicted. So it's getting bizarre, to say the least. So, well, it's a bit strange here. It doesn't make sense. Now, there was a Newsnight program the other day which has caused a storm of controversy. I can't find it online anywhere. It's not on BBC iPlayer. Can't find it on YouTube. But basically, it's the banner behind the presenter, who's that absolutely execrable woman. I can't remember her name. She's kind of like the female, what's her name, Jeremy Paxman. It shows a picture of Moscow, the Moscow skyline, and Jeremy Corbyn wearing traditional Russian clothes, bearskin hat and things like that. Owen Jones was on it as well. He gave him a right lashing, and quite rightly. But they're trying not to spot the contradiction between the two things. In that there's no reason why someone who was ideologically in line with the Soviet Union would now be ideologically in line with Russia today, because Russia today is essentially quite traditionalist. It's a free market capitalist, traditionalist, quite conservative country. Whereas, so someone who was actually pro-Soviet would be appalled by the modern Russia. Now, I don't know if there's no evidence for either things. I mean, even in the end, they had to admit that Corbyn. There's no evidence that Corbyn was a Czech spy in the Cold War. Corbyn's suing the Daily Telegraph at the moment. But basically, that's another level of the rubbish. I think they talk that this is the level of insanity that's descended to. This is where the madhouse has led us, where rationality doesn't matter anymore. Our government can make an assertion; it doesn't have to prove. It's accepted as real because they're saying it. Oh, Eddie, what a blooming pickle! All right, now I'm just going to just have a look at your comments on the last video, because some of you left me some really interesting comments as well. So where are we? Let me just find this is the notice interlude I posted the other day. Thanks for all your comments and what you guys were saying. And Neptune Return says, do you think Putin was put in by the world powers that be? I don't know, but one thing's for certain, he's not doing what he's told now. David Monday said he was going to a UFO meeting in Hampshire. Well, that's a good reason. I think, it's not like well, I hope you enjoy it, David. But you're there, aren't you, David? I think I saw you in there. Oh, Vrillon Aura's there. Hi, Vrillon. I think David Mundy's in there. Are you on your mobile device? Oh, yeah, and another Russian exile, this is from David Mundy as well, found dead in his home in South London just a couple of days after the Skripal attack. Nikolai Glushkov, vocal opponent of the Russian leader Vladimir Putin, died as a result of strangulation. No nerve gas agent was used. Now that's interesting. It's an interesting coincidence, if it is indeed a coincidence. But I mean, if Putin wanted to kill people who disagreed with him, I mean, he's got plenty of domestic opposition leaders he can get rid of. For example, Garry Kasparov, former world chess champion for about 20 years. This guy was an unbeatable chess grandmaster for about 20 years. He's always going on about Putin, about how awful Putin is. And he's a Russian. He lives in Russia. But nobody is doing anything to him. Why doesn't Putin arrange for him to get poisoned? Didn't he? Right. Steve Mumbling. Oh, an interlude and a rubber reptilian. Have you been looking at my channel, Ben? It's all a steaming pile. No, Steve Mumbling. I have not looked at Steve Mumbling's channel lately, but I know I'm going to have to do some more reply videos to him. But Mel O'Brien. See that. Mel, hello. I've good vibe and personal. Thank you very much. When I look at David Wilcock and many other frauds in ufology, I'm writing a book on my UFO experiences. Oh, well done, Mel. And counter the nonsense I see in here, particularly from Americans. Well, I'm British, luckily. I've come to different conclusions of what's really going on. I believe, given my encounters with aliens, we're pretty stupid. They are pretty stupid, at least the ones I've had dealings with when they're afraid of us. And they're afraid there may be far fewer of them than we suppose. I call this the Wizard of Oz effect. They are advanced technology. It was either stolen or developed over countless millennia. They're not from they're from here. That's interesting. That's interesting because in AD After Disclosure, one of the possibilities for what UFOs might be is the sort of crypto-terrestrials. They actually share this Earth with us. We just don't know about them. Peter Steins, can't wait for the double celebrations tomorrow. St. Patrick's Day, I hope you got some drink. You know, get some drinking. I haven't had a drop intoxicating drink all day, believe it or not. Did you do? Yeah. And Anthony Morn. Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Thank you very much, all of you. So you guys in chat, yeah, I'm just going to go through some of the Spurg talks now and say hello to people. Anyone I haven't said hello to. Brilliant Aura says, my laptop was made in China using an American operating system. It's the same as saying Novichok is from Russia only. That's a good point, actually. Yeah. Like I said, it's not difficult to make. It doesn't have some kind of esoteric ingredients. It can be made from normal, quite easily available ingredients. And how you make it is not a secret. There are probably some web pages out there telling people how to do it, which is, as I said, don't try it. David Jones, all forces fracking and to join with our EU allies against Russia. We'll have to delay Brexit. Well, they're doing anything to delay Brexit at the moment, David. Absolutely anything. I mean, they're making a big fuss about the Northern Ireland at the moment and about the border there, without realising that it's very simple, simply to go back to the Anglo-Irish Agreement of 1921. Which goes right back to the history of the creation of that border, where it worked perfectly well before the EU. Why shouldn't it work afterwards? So that's a bit daft anyway. British and US nuclear subs came up the Arctic a couple of days ago. That's right, yes, David. They did a big publicity thing. They were doing exercises under the Arctic ice, breaking through, and they were sure to break through onto the surface and get their photographs taken. So they're not doing. It's not secret exactly. They're doing it as a publicity stunt. It's another intimidation tactic. I mean, there's a lot of fuss about. Like I said, if Russians sail their submarines into the Firth of Clyde and up the Solent, all hell breaks loose, and everyone says how awful they are. Yet the Western powers can sail their submarines wherever they want, and it's yeah, that's good, man. We're fighting back against the horrible Russian threats. Yeah. Head of the Cambridge spy ring was Victor Baron Rothschild, said Diego Rivera. Wouldn't surprise me, you know. A lot of the Cambridge spy rings were never caught. I mean, the Venona decrypts, that was the Soviet encrypted cables that were decoded in the Cold War. Only a handful, as the Cambridge spies, there was only a handful of people that were actually caught. And interestingly, the several people accused Peter Wright. Do you remember the book they tried to ban, Spycatcher? He accuses his former boss, Sir Roger Hollis, head of MI5, as being one of the figures, one of the members of the Cambridge spy ring. So the head of MI5, British domestic intelligence, was a Soviet mole in the Cold War. Now, someone wanted to talk about Val Valiant Thor. I think who's into Val Valiant Thor? Oh, God, I can't remember which one of you it was. Oh, but I did say I would talk about Val Valiant Thor because someone's been on at me to discuss this for ages. Now, I did a. This is another subject, but I did a big article in UFO Truth magazine about Val Valiant Thor. Now, he was a chap who turned up in 1959 at the Pentagon, and he was a pretty ordinary looking chap. There were a few people with him, and he said he was from Venus, the planet Venus. And it's very interesting because there's a book written about him. He was quite well known by several people in the Department of Defense at the United States. He did have an interview in. Hi, Emperor Mong. Hi. He did have several meetings with Dwight Eisenhower, and there's several photographs of him as well with some people. And they look like they look like completely ordinary humans. However, now if these people are not aliens, they've never been identified. Vanya Patterson. Russian elections start tomorrow. Do they, Vanya? That's interesting. I wonder if that. I wonder if that means there's a connection here. I wonder. Now, Val Valiant Thor said he came from Venus. Now, this was before we knew anything about Venus. And since then, we found out that Venus is one of the most inhospitable places in the universe. It has the pressure there, the atmospheric pressure, because through the dense atmosphere, is so powerful, it's so dense. It's the equivalent of being 3,000 feet below the surface of the sea. It crush a human body instantly. The gas is almost entirely carbon dioxide, and it's so hot you can melt lead, and it rains sulfuric acid. So not a very nice place for a holiday. So, so obviously he lied. Val Valiant Thor and his people lied. And the thing is, as Dr. Carla Turner has found out, before she died in mysterious circumstances, aliens do lie. They lie they lie very, they're consummate liars. Thanks, Stuart. So the question is why? I mean, they obviously, if they come, do they not come from Venus? If they come from Venus, do they come from another planet or somewhere else? If they're not from another planet, are they just pretending to be? Are they really normal humans? If so, they've never been identified. There are lots of photographs of these people. There's about a dozen of these people. They've never been. Anthony Moore, it was you, wasn't it? Yeah. They could speak every human language, had an IQ of nearly 200. That's right, Anthony, and they've never been identified. So, I mean, there's a book written about it. I haven't read yet, but I've been having a look at the Val Valiant Thor thing. It's a very interesting case. Very interesting case. Mel O'Brien, sorry, must be careful with comments. Being censored by YouTube and Facebook, I know. Thomas Sheridan has talked about the truth about St. Patrick. I'll have to look at that because Thomas is very interesting. But, you know, the censorship thing annoys me, really. I've done an entire video on that. Hi, Goon Love. How are you? But, oh, yeah, that's another thing. I've got to bring that up, David. This idea that the Russians were actually behind Trump's election victory. They hacked the election, which is bullshit. This whole thing comes from a ridiculous accusation at meeting. Well, what happened? Donald Trump Jr. had a meeting with a lawyer, actually, from Russia, who supposedly has connections to Russian intelligence. And then there's loads of other stuff like about the Democratic National Convention being hacked by the Russians. The Russians got hold of stuff. WikiLeaks talked via WikiLeaks. Thanks, Peter. And you know, the Russians, they've been accused of almost anything that goes wrong in the world that the globalists don't like. The thing about the Democratic National Convention stuff was all rubbish, because these downloads that supposedly WikiLeaks got from the Russian hacking, okay, the amount of material, someone worked out the amount of material that was actually downloaded is much too fast for any kind of internet connection, which means that the files must have been copied physically on scene. So somebody actually had to be there. You have to have like a memory stick or something, or portable drive. You'd have to actually physically plug it into the computer to copy material that quickly, which means that it can't have been a Russian hack. Now, what's the name of that guy who got murdered? Is it Seth Rich? I think it's Seth Rich. Who was his name? Yeah, Seth Rich murder. Right. This is the Clinton body count, the famous Clinton body count you probably heard of. All right, how am I getting on? Let's have a look at them. I can record for up to 8 hours if I like, but I'm not going to do that. Now then, hi Phuket, how are you? Seth Rich, that's him. Thanks, John. It was a copied thumb drive. It was, yes. Now this chap, Seth Rich, he is supposedly the double agent, a deep throat in the Democratic National Convention. He was killed. Well, it seems that everyone who seems to get cross Bill and Hillary Clinton end up in terrible situations. Usually ends up with them dead. Now, what happened was it was a strange sort of thing, because there were emails supposedly gathered by WikiLeaks that the Russians were trying to. What happened was it was revealed that the convention was plotting to sabotage the presidential run of Bernie Sanders to make sure Hillary Clinton was the only candidate for president, which was probably true, and it was bloody annoying because the old fool then went and endorsed her, didn't he? And everyone who supported him felt betrayed, quite rightly. And then the chairman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, resigned, and then that was the end of it all. No one really thought there was anything worth investigating in terms of legal terms. But even Trump has not ordered one. And, well, this thing about Trump is Trump. The thing about Trump is Trump wants to drain the swamp. But how can he drain the swamp without being sucked down into it? That's the question. And then, so this is, the leak was allegedly obtained by a hacker or team of hackers codenamed Guccifer 2.0. But this has never been proved. They were Romanian. They're blamed on a couple of Romanians. But then he was a political scientist called Seth Rich. He was shot dead on the streets. And the police claim it was an attempted robbery, but nothing was taken from his pockets. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about, as David Icke would say. So this is possibly a weird situation, because someone called Seymour Hersh, who was one of America's most respected journalists, said that Seth Rich was indeed a deep throat from the DNC, and divulged emails to WikiLeaks. It was not this Guccifer 2.0, it was this insider. There we go. But the deception, you see, it runs even deeper than that, because, well, WikiLeaks itself can't necessarily be trusted. I don't know if you've watched Rich Planet TV. There's been a lot on there about how WikiLeaks itself is controlled. But anyway, this is kind of a side issue, but there's a connection here, which I haven't got down in my notes, but it is about how there's this connection, which I can't remember the details of. But basically, they were trying to say that the Russians sabotaged the whole thing in the end. And they destroyed Hillary Clinton's presidential run, and they made sure the Russians got in. So they made sure the Russian agent, but Donald Trump got in. So Trump's a Russian agent, Corbyn's a Russian agent. Everybody the government don't like are Russian agents at the moment. Oh, 69 Phuket, thanks very much. You like that? That's the Kev Baker show. Thank you very much. Tall White Male. Hi, Tall White Male. First time for me. This is a great channel. Oh, thanks, Tall White Male. Thanks for joining us. This farce has been created to thwart Brexit, says Emperor Mong. We need the EU to protect us from the rabid slathering bear. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone's going to say something like that, you know. Some bugger is going to do that. They're going to find a way to bring Brexit into it. I'm absolutely certain. I'm absolutely certain they're going to try and find some way to slander horrid people in Moscow. Yeah, that's right. They're going to find some way to slander the Brexiteers over this. David Monday says, Ben, if you get 1 million hits, that's the Russians hacking for your benefit. Oh, bless. Hi, Pain of Death, the NW. Hi, how you doing? How are you? And Vrillon Aura. Hi, Vrillon. Who else is there? Moses Flowers. Hello, Moses. I met St. Patrick's at Dublin today. Seems a nice game. Maybe Thomas Sheridan made a mistake. So my nose is itching. When I speak, my nose always itches when I speak. Yeah. I don't know how many of you. There's another weird thing that's happened. I don't know if this is connected, but there was this guy who got this strange voicemail. Did you see that? I've got it all. It's all on here. Hang on, I've got all the details here. This was this chap. It was all over the internet. Now, this happened a couple of days ago. This guy wrote on Twitter. He said, I need you all to listen to this. I've got a voicemail. I'm deactivating my cell phone service. I don't know why. I've just been sent some military code. Fucking hell, do I look like Liam Neeson? He said. He was really distressed by this chap. I don't know if this is connected to Russia or anything, but then this voicemail, it's this feminine voice. It's probably an electronic voice, reading out a list of numbers and letters in the English phonetic alphabet. Now, you're familiar with the English phonetic alphabet. It's one you hear in movies a lot. I was taught it myself. I had to learn it because at the hospital we used walkie-talkies when I was a porter. Have I mentioned I was a hospital porter once? I think so. Well, I am anyway, just in case. We had these walkie-talkies, and this is basically because if you're on the radio, the quality communication is not as easy as it is when you're speaking face-to-face. So it's easy to get spelling mistakes and misunderstandings. So when we had to read out letters, we wouldn't read out the letter. We'd read out words whose first letter was the letter of the alphabet, which we wanted to say. So you get that Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, X-Ray, Yankee, Zulu. And so this message came through. It was in the English phonetic alphabet on this voicemail. So there's a load of letters and some numbers. And when you skim it's a string of characters. When you just look at it, you can actually pick out a couple of words. I can see danger, for you, cautious, human, danger. And in fact, if you edit this, if you transliterate it, you get this message. It's a message in English with some numbers, and it reads this. It reads thus: Danger SOS. It is dire for you to evacuate. Be cautious. They are not human. 042 933 964230. SOS. Danger. SOS. Now, SOS, for instance, SOS stands for Save Our Souls. In the phonetic alphabet, that's a cry for help. And this message was sent from a hidden number. The number was not revealed, so you couldn't call it back. I forget the numbers. No, who knows what they mean? But some people say that GPS coordinates. If they're GPS coordinates, they designate a location on a riverbank in Gabon, which is a West African country on the Gulf of Guinea. It's not far from Fernando Poo, for those of you who went to Robert Anton Wilson and the Illuminatus trilogy. Some people linked it to the MH370, the missing airliner. I'm not sure about that. But now the man who received these voicemails, he calls himself Ty, T-Y, on Twitter. It's at Stray, STRAYEDAWAY, Strayed Away. Now, if you go to his page, it's gone. His Twitter account has been deactivated, and he might have done this himself. This actually happened. I wrote an article about this, and I put it up earlier, and his account has disappeared. And as I say, he may have done this himself because he's absolutely terrified by what has happened. I'm just going to actually edit my article. I was going to do this quickly because there we go. Let's put edit. This account has been possibly by the user himself, because he was so scared, he was so terrified that he may well have just decided he wanted to come off Twitter. He apparently, he says he got rid of his phone. He was so frightened he got rid of his phone. He was that frightened. Because he said he'd thrown his mobile phone away. I mean, have you heard of this, you guys? Ty at straightaway. No, it's at straightaway. Twitter at straightaway. Twitter.com. Ty is his name. TY. Yeah, Vrillon Secure Team did a video about it. Yeah, it was. Hey, Jam Noise. Hey, Jam Noise. Mwah. How are you, soul sister? Jam Noise is there. Oh, it's good. Thanks very much, Jam Noise, for joining us. It's good to hear from you again. Is Hunley there? Hunley, are you there? Hunley, hello. Was St. Patrick gay? Was this spread by Russian time-traveling bots? Yeah. And Cosmic Claire, hi Cosmic, how are you? Fanatical. Yeah. Hey guys, how are you? Hi Hunley. I'm not seen you for a while, Hunley. How are you? Yeah. So this guy was. It's really very strange. Now, he's thrown his mobile phone away. He believes he was sent some secret military code by mistake. He fears attention from the government security services, because he said that just before, the day before, the early hours of the morning where he got this voicemail, someone was photographing his house at 3 a.m. Very paranoid, very sort of paranoid generating. And he's been sent some more messages on other media in foreign languages. But these could be hoaxes, because he's become very, very famous now, and his predicament has been spread across the conspiracy sphere. So people are going to play tricks on him, which may be why he deactivated his account. If he deactivated his account himself, then that makes sense. Unless he didn't deactivate it himself, and someone else did it for him, and he himself might, I don't know what's happened to him. You better check he's all right, actually, because if he comes up and find out where he is. Anyway, but he got very annoyed. He got annoyed about this. He got upset. He got very distressed. He got very annoyed because people were sending him DMs about this. I didn't, but other people did, and he doesn't like being the center of attention for people like us loonies, UFO, paranormal, conspiracy theory believers. And that's what makes this story very credible for me, because Ty he's not someone like us. I've had a look through his account. I followed him and looked at his other tweets, and he's very much. I think he's very much an American liberal. He's into satirical comedy, left-wing satirical comedy. Believe it or not, there is such a thing. He's a bit of a SJW, sort of Antifa type almost. There's lots of anti-Trump epithets on his feed, which is weird because belief in UFO, paranormal, conspiracy theory subjects is virtually non-existent among people with those political ideals. It is just a non-existent thing. It just doesn't happen. They don't. It's that simple. So he's not the type of person who would make up a story like this. And I think the voicemail was real, and the fear he felt with this situation was very real. He actually said, someone sent me secret military codes. He thinks he's now being targeted by clandestine government intelligence agencies. Maybe he is. We should check he's all right, actually. If there's anything on about it. Let's check Twitter, but basically see if there's anything about him here. Hello, Emma. How are you? Emma Jones there. Let's have a look. Because his account's gone, but Ty. Here we are. Ty out straight away. The user does not exist. That's just weird, isn't it? Because let's see, I retweeted some of this stuff. Let's look at my own Twitter, because I retweeted a load of his stuff. Where is it? It's gone. Does that normally happen with Twitter? It's just my retweets are gone as well. That's weird. Maybe that's just, that normally. Maybe that always happens when you shut down an account. I mean, if anyone knows Ty, I mean, I don't know who Ty is. I don't know his real name. I don't know where he. But we should. Is he all right? Is he lying in a ditch somewhere? Perhaps he's Antifa leader to scare the shit out of him. If he turns up dead, it'll be a bit of an odd coincidence. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about, as David Icke would say. Maybe you poison with Novichok, I don't know. But maybe this is something they want to keep quiet, in which case, what about me? I mean, I've just written an article about it. It's got out now. Look, I'm okay. I'm not going to commit suicide or anything like that. I'm in perfect health. Okay, I want that placed on the record. Download this video when it's finished, when the live stream's finished. You have it on record. I've got no reason to think that I'm not going to live to a ripe old age. So if I don't, you'll know why, and I'll contact. If that happens to me, I'll contact you through psychics. All right, and I'll let you know what's happened to me. Seriously, this is getting worrying. Let me carry on anyway. Yeah. Now, this message is very interesting because it could have been intended for some kind of undercover spy, some hidden room in a foreign embassy, maybe the Russian embassy. I mean, this is why there may be a connection here with the Russian thing. But how many of you are familiar with number stations? Now, before advanced modern communications and the internet, secret messages were conveyed to spies and agents in the field through analog radio channels. And these were called number stations because very often they just consisted of short broadcasts where people would read out a list of numbers. But there was some that had like several signatures to them. For instance, there was one called the Lincolnshire Poacher, which is believed to be a MI6 or CIA number station, which was designed to transmit to people during the Cold War, Russia, agents in the field over the Iron Curtain. And it was called that because of the tune. It opened with the tune, the Lincolnshire Poacher tune, and then somebody would just read out a list of numbers. That'd be the only message. There'd be some numbers and letters, and that is very much to do with the fact it was just code. The agent would probably have a code book, and he'd listen to that number, and you just open it up and you look it up in the code book, and it would actually tell you what it is. It would be an unbreakable code because it'd be a randomly created single-use pad, like the Venona decrypts were the same, the ones which caught the Cambridge spies. The only reason they managed to decode some of the Venona decrypts was because some of the agents were getting sloppy and they were using the same pad twice or more or several times. If they'd been more diligent, the Venona decrypts would never have been compromised. And you could pick up these number stations by home radio set, and some of them are still broadcasting, and they were very similar in content to Ty's voicemail. And your listeners are actually pretty creepy. Some of them are really creepy. Now, I remember when I was a little kid, I found a number station. I remember you just using my radio. Cosmic Claire says, I get Lincolnshire Poacher Stilton at the local farmer's market. Oh, that's nice. Lincolnshire. It's a song as well, Claire. I mean, it's a folk song, I think, but it was designed to signify this number station. Some of them are really, really creepy. I like Moscow Radio. Yeah, I watch RT. Yeah. Woodpecker says Vrillon. Yeah, the woodpecker signal Vrillon was where the Russians were actually firing electronic weapons, electromagnetic weapons at the US embassy in Moscow that was actually making people ill. Yeah, it's like I tell you what, I actually picked up a number station when I was a kid. I remember it was broadcasting. It was simply repeating the letters RYO over and over again in Morse code. It just repeated it over and over again. And it was playing for years and years. I remember I used to tune into it. So what does Ty's voicemail mean? I'll just read it out again. Danger SOS. It is dire for you to evacuate. Be cautious. They are not human. 042933964230. SOS, danger, SOS. What does that mean? Well, we forget the numbers. They could mean anything. There's no, and people have just interpreted them as things like GPS coordinates. In which case, like I said, it's this thing in West Africa. But it could. We don't know it means that. It could mean anything. So forget the numbers, okay? But the words are alarming. What it is, it's an alert of danger, danger SOS, a call for help, SOS, assistance. We need help here, assistance, and it involves a hazard from something that is not human, but it might be mistaken for human by the recipient, hence the appeal for caution. So this refers obviously to an intelligent entity of some kind that's not human. Does this mean something extraterrestrial? I don't know. But like I say, this is breaking news story. I'm just going to put on, I'll just mention on, I don't know if Secure Team 10 have known this, but I'll just mention on Secure Team 10 that, so in case someone else hasn't actually said anything about this, but Ty's account has gone. I'm just going to mention this now. I'll just appear Ty's Twitter has gone. Says maybe someone else has mentioned that too. I don't think anyone has, but I'll just mention, yeah. People are saying it may be a sleeper agent to be activated and things like that. Maybe some form of mind control. Maybe Ty is a mind controlled person, even more than Antifas normally are. I'm talking about like MK Ultra mind control, not just propaganda, but MK Ultra type stuff. You know, that's the serious stuff. But anyway, thanks you guys. SOS, stop organised stalking, says Sane Man. Quite right. Yeah, save our souls. Yes, SOS, save our souls, Anthony. In the English phonetic alphabet, it is literally a cry for help. It really is. Save our sausages. So the mash aliens. Oh, the mashed potato aliens. I remember those. God, I must be old. Emperor Monk, see you at RD Hall at Kingston, Ben. Emperor, is he appearing at Kingston again? I don't know. Sausages on sale. Standardise our sausages. That's the generally the EU. Standardise our sausages and meet the regulations. So I don't know what's going on here. It's weird. I mean, we could be looking at a disclosure situation, hopefully, at some point. That's what I'd like. Obviously, you know. But you know, it's hard to know. I mean, as I said, you know, there's a whole load of issues associated with this. Like I said in my Black Panther video, you know, it's essentially the breakaway civilization breaking a policy that it has had for over a century, and it has been very, very firm on. It seems to be a policy that they are unified and very, very decided upon. And so I mean, it's again, I've done entire videos on that. I've done, you know, look at my exopolitics and my exopolitics videos. Check those out. Let's look at my questions here. Hi Ben. Hey Ben, says Stephen. Do you know about Super Chat? People give you money. Yes, I heard about that. That's actually I don't know if that's worth doing. I mean, I'll think about that. I mean, I have a donate if you want to help me out. I've got a donate button, although it's not working at the moment very well. People have had problems with it. There's been some technical problems. Now you mentioned, who was it? Emperor Monk, the 24th or thereabouts. Richard D. Hall. I'm going to go and see Richard in Newcastle. Actually, someone's invited me. Jam Noise, I remember. Jam Noise, you're as old as me. Hey Alan, how are you? Space and shit. Space and shit. My review of Black Panther. Oh, Sane Man, come on, it was better. I did a review of Black Panther that was almost as long as the movie, and Matthew Williams was complaining. Mind you, Matthew Williams complains about bloody everything, doesn't he? I just sometimes people, it just is, when I, I ramble on, and sometimes I don't believe I waste the viewer's time. I believe that everything I say has a reason, has a purpose, and I just let myself roll. And I believe I say things that are necessary. And so when I watched Black Panther, it got me thinking about an awful lot of things, because there's a massive number of issues associated with that particular film. And so it was a long review. The film was 2 hours, 20 minutes. My review was only about 20 minutes shorter. Anyway, Richard, I'm just going to have a look this up while you're on the air, because I think we're nearly finished now. Let's have a look. Come on, hang on, right. Rich Planet Starship. There we go. The tour, 2018 tour. Right, find out details of the 2018 tour. Right, here we go. Glasgow, the 19th of April. Newcastle, 20th. That's the one I'm going to. York, 22nd. Manchester, 23rd. Liverpool, 24th. Birmingham, 27th. London, 29th. Now, Emperor Mong, when Richard says the cities and things like that, he often refers to the nearest large city to where he's going to be. So, for example, when Richard said he was, I went to see him in Birmingham once, and the actual venue was not in Birmingham. It was actually in Warwickshire, in a little place near Bromsgrove, which is about 10 miles from Birmingham. And so when he says London, he probably may well mean Kingston. So I'm going to the thing is, people have invited me. Someone's invited me to the Newcastle one. I'm going to stay with the people where I went with Nick Colostrum. I'm going to be staying there. Someone's also invited me to the Weston-super-Mare one, which is rumoured to be the best, because Richard's the Weston-super-Mare outfit is supposedly the best. It's where Richard films a lot of what he does. So I'm going to that one. So someone's invited me along to that. So I'm going to go as a guest. So it wasn't Richard himself, it was someone else. So Armand, you can head off. See you, Armand. Thanks for watching. I'll be finishing actually in a few minutes, because I think we're nearly done now, unless anyone's got any very interesting questions. Alva Church, that's it. Alva Church, Richard. I'm trying to think of the name of the place. Kings Heath, Birmingham. It's always in Kings Heath, Birmingham this time. Great. And it's at an old working men's club down some back street. Old working men. Well, that'll suit me and Richard perfectly, won't it? He is fantastic, Jam Noise. Yes. Never mind. Oh wait, I've googled Old Working Men's Club. Okay. Bye bye, Armand. Well, thanks for the information, Emperor Mong. I might be able to go to that one as well. I'm not sure. I'm going to 2 of them already, so I don't know. Richard will be sick to death of me, I'll tell you. But I'm buying tickets, so he shouldn't complain. Oh, Tom DeLong, Villanora says. Yeah, now, I brought this up on the Kev Baker show the other day, actually, because Tom DeLong, I was a bit late coming into this, because, you listen, David, yeah, you listened to the Sure Cure Team video about it. Tom DeLong, I mean, this coincided with the publication of my book, so I was very, very busy launching my book for a couple of weeks. So I didn't have time to kind of get into it. I was busy preparing for this book. Roswell Revealed, A World After Disclosure. Available at all good bookshops now. Shameless plug over. And but it's very similar to what Stephen Greer was doing a number of years ago, actually. He's got together these people. Now, I asked Stephen Bassett about this when he was on the show, and he says it's not like what Greer was doing, because these are not witnesses. These are highly placed government officers. However, for me, thanks, Vrillon. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. For me, in a sense, the witnesses are actually more important than the officials, because if you look at the kind of people DeLong's got, I'm a bit concerned. And something's concerned me about this. I don't want to write off Tom DeLong and the To the Stars Academy. I don't want to write these people off. Okay. Oh, and write off the whole thing. I just want to say that we should be suspicious and be wary, be on our guard. That's what I'm saying. Be on our guard. I'm not saying dismiss it. Just be on our guard. I don't want to play the video. Hang on, where are we? So look at the team. The team. He's put together this panel. You saw them in the video. Now, Tom DeLong I think, is an honest guy, because Tom DeLonge has actually been into this business for a very long time, long before he became famous within the field, when he was still with Blink 182. He ran a bookshop, or maybe he still does. It's in Los Angeles, California, USA. And I know because Gareth Davis has been there. Gareth Davis Mindset, who lives in that area, he's been there. And here we go. And but he has set this up. And let's look at the people who are here. Right, one of the people who is actually his vice president of the science and technology panel of To the Stars is a guy called Harold Puthoff, Dr. Hal Puthoff. Now, he is a very interesting chap because he first came to fame as long ago as 1972, because he, with his colleague Russell Targ, carried out some experiments on Uri Geller. Now, you've all heard of Uri Geller. Uri Geller, have some of you leaving? Okay. Are you going, Jam Noise? Nice to see you again. See you, soul sister. Oh, bye-bye, Anthony. You got to go. You were going. See you, Anthony. Thanks for watching, Anthony. I don't want to ramble on. I'll let you go in a minute. Puthoff. What do I think of the esoteric implications? We feel Saturday night. I don't know, Neptune. Sorry, but I have to look into that another day. But Harold Puthoff did some experiments on Uri Geller. You've all heard of Uri Geller, the most famous paranormal superstar in the world. They passed him at Stanford Research Institute. They passed him as fake, as real. Even though there's this guy called Bill Nye, the science guy, who was like discrediting him. Oh, well, all right, Jackie. No worries. Okay, glad you're still here, Jackie. Who was saying they passed him as real. They said he was real, but this guy Bill Nye, the science guy, who's a big-time skeptic, was saying he was not. And Mel, what happened was you're talking about the Johnny Carson show where James Randi. Yeah, in 1976, he was on the Johnny Carson show, and James Randi came in and put in the props. That's what you're talking about, aren't you? Yeah, but I think there might have been a bit of a double bluff there, and it's a big subject. But look at my skeptics video, Mel. It's on my. It's only about 6 or 7 videos ago on my catalog, Mel, and I talk about the whole James Randi Educational Foundation and everything associated with it. Because the thing about Uri Geller went on to be this big-time magician. Thanks, David. Urine Gallery. You don't trust the autocorrect, especially when you're doing one-time posts which you can't delete. He's basically, as a magician, he's pretty poor, isn't he? I mean, he only knows about 2 or 3 tricks. So in a sense, he's this paranormal superstar. However, what happened was, I believe in early 1973, and someone else has already said it, Diego Rivera has already said it, he was recruited to Mossad and the CIA. Now, where he was used as fine canned. Same man. I don't. What was that? Uri Geller is a bent spoon. No, he bent a spoon. Yeah, that's about all he can do. Is bend spoons and do a couple of other things. Now, in the early 2000s, he actually admitted to John Ronson, the journalist, that he was a remote viewer for the CIA. Okay, and he'd been reactivated for the Iraq War. I know, made millions bending spoons, you know. Do you think if I do the same, someone will pay me $1 million? I bet. Now, what he said was that what Geller actually said to Ronson was, well, I'm going to. He said, if you repeat this, I'll deny it. And Ronson repeated in his book, The Men Who Stare at Goats, which is an awful lot better than the film. And Geller denied it. Yet, much later, in fact, just 2 years ago, I did a review of this because he was on a video. Well, let me just find out the details. He was on a video he did a TV documentary in 2013 where he admitted that he was a CIA asset and a Mossad asset, and he came clean and said this is why he was. And he said, I was recruited in 1973 to the Mossad and the CIA. I've been working for them on and off ever since, which could explain his success. The fact that he's a crappy magician and he fluffs some of the things when he's subjected to several tricks, he fluffs them. He may not actually be a fraud. Mel was saying this earlier on. He may just pretend to be a fraud. It may be a double bluff, Mel O'Brien, because he is an asset of the intelligence services. I'll say a bit more. Going back to Hal Puthoff. Here we go. He's Stanford Research Institute, a National Security Agency, Sperry General Electric. We're talking about a guy who's involved in the military-industrial complex and the National Security Agency. So there we are. And there's a couple of other very dodgy people on here. Let's have a look. Now, Chris Mellon, private equity investor, political commentator. And the name Mellon, M-E-L-L-O-N, is the name of an elite American family and a part of the power elite of America, the closest thing the United States has to an aristocracy. It includes families like the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, and people like that. The Mellons are another of these famous families. So I don't know if he's actually one of that family, just because he's called Mellon. There may be other people called Mellon, but he has that name. But he's been on. He's very close to government. He's worked for the defense. He's assistant director of defense for intelligence in the Clinton and Bush administrations, minority staff director at the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, aide to Senator William Cohen, U.S. Special Operations Command. Again, very highly placed person. Now, Gary Nolan is a name that always comes up because he is involved in what's sometimes known as artificial intelligence and transhumanism, along with that Ray Kurzweil guy. Now, I don't know much about him, but he works for something called, he's part of the Genetic Technology Consultant, and he's a professor in the Department of Microbiology at Stanford University, SRI, Spain, places Puthoff. And he's another one he's got his bio, again, he's very, very elite and stuff like this. There's another person. Now, the person I trust most of all on this committee is Colm Kelleher. Colm Kelleher worked for Bob Bigelow, and he was behind the famous Skinwalker Ranch research project, which the National Institute of Discovery Science, which was Bigelow's organization, basically funded that research project, which means that the Skinwalker project, please do look up, read the book, look at the, don't forget about the movie, the fictional movie, but look at the documentaries and the interviews and the book that Kelleher wrote. It's The Hunt for the Skinwalker. It was a fantastic paranormal investigation that, unlike most paranormal investigations, had all the money it needed. And what they discovered was incredible, thanks to Bob Bigelow. Now, he's the only person on this panel I really trust, to be honest. Dr. Adele Giblin is actually part of... Now, she was involved in the swine flu thing. I don't know all the details to that. But the point is, we can't necessarily... I mean, these are people I'm suspicious of, quite frankly. I find the likes of Captain Robert Salas and Larry Warren and these various other witnesses, the original witnesses of the Disclosure Project, far more credible than a lot of these people. This doesn't mean we should write them off. It doesn't mean we should automatically dismiss the To the Stars Academy. I'm sure some of these people, including Tom DeLonge and certainly Colm Kelleher and Bob Bigelow, are involved for sincere reasons. And that hopefully that means if there's any corruption involved, they will speak out against it. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, there's all kinds of things on this website, the To the Stars Academy, including pictures of aircraft which are like look like something from my books, actually. These anti-gravity aircraft and things like that. A beamed energy propulsion, advanced electrogravitic propulsion, brain science, brain-computer interface, engineering the space trimetric consciousness. Now that is this is concerned because the whole transhumanist thing can be abused. It can be, it can actually be, it can be used for good or bad, like all technology. You know, it can be used to repair that brain damage and things like this. Or it can be used to actually put us into it can actually be to turn us into some kind of subhuman. Jam Noise, you started writing a story. How's that coming on? Because Jam Noise has written she wrote the start of a story, a fictional story, a bit like mine, which is about these issues, which talks about a transhumanist future. So, Jam Noise, how's that book coming along? Because I'd love to read the rest of it. I really would. David Mundy says, James Fox. Carter, yeah, Jimmy Carter, President of the United States. He did have a UFO sighting. When he was actually with, what's her name? His friend, who's not Shirley Valentine. What's her name? She's a famous actress, and she's written a couple of books. She's very into spiritual things and UFOs. Shirley MacLaine. This is before he was president. He was actually at her place and looking up in the sky, and they saw a UFO. Oh, I'm sorry, Jamno. Sorry to hear that. Mel O'Brien. Yes. I'm glad you brought this up. I was gonna mention this. Larry Warren. A lot of lies have been told about Larry Warren lately. It's all made up. It's all fabricated. It was invented by somebody who just doesn't like Larry for completely personal reasons. It's sad so many people have believed it. Even Peter Robbins has believed it. And he passed a lie detector test. There's an awful lot more. I can't tell you now. I know more than I can tell you, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a film called Capel Green coming out soon. Please do watch that. Because when that comes out, it'll all be revealed and this will all be over. Jam Noise, I know what you mean, finding time to do these things. Yeah. Diego Rivera. Shirley Valentine was a film, yes. That was actually a very good film. She went to Greece to put younger man. She went to, yeah, that was a good movie. That was very good. Shirley Valentine, Com Conte. And have you watched my BBC video? Yeah, because I mentioned Shirley Valentine. I mentioned about the fact that when I watched Shirley Valentine on the BBC, it was at 10 p.m. It was about 10 to 10:30 p.m. at night, and I watched Shirley Valentine. And all the swearing had been cut out. There's only a couple of F words in it. It'd all been cut out, and yet the BBC will produce incredibly violent productions of their own time, like that gunpowder thing, where you see people being beaten and disemboweled and crushed and raped and whipped and things like that, and hung, and beheadings and things like that. So I bring that up in my BBC. Look at my latest BBC video. Yeah, time is eternal. Yes, that's from the KLF. Oh, I'm getting. It's now. I've been going for almost an hour and 3/4 now, guys. So are you all done now? Because if I am, I'll stop the stream. But it's been great. I really do. 3 a.m. eternal. Yeah. All of you people, Hunley, Jam Noise, Soul Sister, Neptune Returns, Diego Rivera, Sane Man, Mel O'Brien, Anthony Morn, all of you, Neil Austin, Emperor Mong. Who else is there? Anyone else I've left out? Thank you very much for being a part of this live stream. I'd love to. I could go on for 8 hours on this. I could, but thank you very much. You're off to the pub, Sane Man. Okay. Well, enjoy your St. Patrick's Day evening as it goes. Thank you very much, Mel, and thank you, Peter. Thank you, Soul Sister. Thank you, Cosmic Claire. Thanks for tuning in, all of you. And Vrillon, thank you very much. I'll let you know. There's a sample chapter in my new book, and I'll let you know when the new book. I'm writing the new book. I know what Jam Noise means. It's hard to find time, but I'm trying to get it done. So yeah, Fake Sunday tomorrow. Take it easy, guys, and thank you. And Hugo Room, take care. Thank you, and thank you for joining me on this live stream. Obviously, post a link to this. Will be obviously Ireland won the rugby. Oh right, oh good. I don't care what happens. I'm Welsh. As long as they beat England, that's all that matters. Yeah. So so yeah, I'm going to stop the live stream, and don't remember it will be saved as a recording, so you can watch it again and share it and post it to people who've missed the live stream. I'll be posting links myself. You guys are brilliant. Thank you for everything, and good night. Oh, Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order. I almost forgot.